When the Ken Burns miniseries, The Civil War, came out in 1990, I watched all 11, I think, hours of it on PBS over 5 nights, I think it was. It was riveting and educational television. But what I and a lot of other people enjoyed and remembered most were the interventions by the writer and historian Shelby Foote. His erudition, southern drawl, and almost fireside storytelling skills won over hundreds of thousands of people, and he became an instant celebrity. He had published his 3-part history, The Civil War, a Narrative, 15 years before. The books, which had taken him 20 years to write, became instant bestsellers. He was also a novelist, greatly influenced by William Faulkner, and could boast of being a lifetime friend since he was 15 years old with Walker Percy, whose stunning novel, The Moviegoer, I've probably read a half dozen times. In my opinion, it is the best Catholic novel, by an American at least, written in the second half of the 20th century. Turns out that Shelby Foote, who passed away in 2005, was as eloquent speaking about writing as he was speaking about the Civil War. In 1983, 7 years before the Burns miniseries, he was interviewed by Mississippi Public Broadcasting for a program called Mississippi Writers Talking. In it, he spoke about the process, pitfalls, and apprenticeship of literary writers.
By the time I finished college, and I was in the class of 39, there had not been a major American writer who could even pretend to have been well educated. The only one I know of who had a master's degree was Thomas Wolfe, and I know he kept on another 2 years so as to live on his folks, which is a perfectly valid thing to do. But Faulkner and Hemingway had never been to college. Fitzgerald flunked out of Princeton, and so on. It is by no means required, and in some ways, I think for the last 2 years of college, junior and senior year, you really might be better off out riding freight trains or working in a sawmill for the experience that you get from it during those invaluable years when your brain is like a sponge and absorbs every experience you have. If your experiences are college campus experiences, that's pretty meager stuff.
Of course, all writers have to educate ourselves by reading the books that we love. But perhaps we shouldn't have those books explained or deconstructed for us by literature and creative writing professors, at least not when we're too young, when our minds are still, as Foote says, sponges. In other words, we don't want to be told why certain books are important because of the symbols or narrative techniques used or because of the themes or social issues evoked. We want to feel why these books are important. We want to feel the uniquely authentic way in which human experience and spirit can be communicated through storytelling and elevated language. The best books are calls to adventure. They send us out into the world or into the deep recesses of our minds to search. Discussing them in college classrooms can be fun, but that doesn't help create great literature, like living and thinking boldly and unconventionally does. These days, I don't think that riding freight trains or working in a sawmill give insight into the precarious margins of America. To better understand the beating heart and beleaguered soul of contemporary America, better to work as an EMT or as an Amazon driver or for DoorDash, or perhaps get some middling managerial position at a tech or insurance company. If you can survive that with your faculties intact, or enough so that you can write well about it, well then not only will you be entertaining us, but you will be showing us the underbelly of our country.
I've been all my life not only opposed to writers being overeducated, I've been opposed to even financial help it's given them. It's a great thing if you can't do any more than pay the light bill to be able to do it. And if somebody comes along with a large grant for you that short circuits that, they're depriving you of something there. He should do it on his own. He should be wary about accepting obligations that would require him to do work he doesn't like. For instance, ideally, unless he could afford it, he probably ought not get married. If he gets married, if he can't afford it, he probably ought not have any children. Well, that's one hell of a restriction to put on somebody. But a writer knows, not out of selfishness does he concentrate on what matters in his art. He does it because he knows the whole thing's going to blow up in his face if he doesn't. If you're married and your wife wants a new coat, and you write some bad fiction so that she can have a new coat, you and your wife are not going to get along very well anyhow. So don't do that. Let her go cold. If the children are hungry, give them a peanut butter sandwich. Don't go down and buy them some roast beef by writing bad work, because you're going to lose those children anyhow. You'll be so dissatisfied with yourself that the thing's going to blow up.
Foote is right that a big part of the artistic vocation is learning how to make it feasible. Learning what sacrifices we have to make personally, economically, socially, and perhaps what sacrifices our spouses and children will have to make, and how to bear that with grace and dignity. And he's right that grants in grad school just put the cold, stark reality at bay, temporarily delaying it. As literary writers, the sooner that we learn to not sell ourselves out, not overextend ourselves to get what our vocations will most likely deprive us of, money, status, comfort, social cachet, the sooner we get used to not having all that, the better. If we really are artists, if we really can't be happy following any other path, then we have to accept its inconveniences and hardships. If I do work that tires my writing mind, that demoralizes or disgusts me, just to have the trappings and the social acceptance that comes with taking the more conventional path, that is the road to perdition if you're an artist. You will start liking yourself less, and those who love you for who you are will start liking you less too. Getting by with an artistic vocation demands, in most cases, voluntary poverty. A person who is materially poor, who is pursuing artistic fulfillment, basically the pastime of an aristocrat, that is a very difficult balance to strike, requiring endurance most of all. And the sooner we start to train that, the better.
Anything that helps you learn how to write, any outside thing that gives you laws and rules, such as a teacher of creative writing, is short-circuiting you, is keeping you from having some very valuable experiences that can only be gained by making mistakes. What he tells you may be literally true, but you don't know it on your own skin. And the only way you're going to know it for yourself is to discover it for yourself. So anybody who gives you excellent advice about writing is almost keeping you from learning it. You can say, yes, right, but you can't put it into practice unless you found it out for yourself.
Let me give you an example of this. You go to get your MFA in creative writing, and you have teachers who have lived longer, have experienced more of life, of reading, of the writing process than you. And they introduce you to their canon. And you're told by those in the know that these are the best of the best. And perhaps you vibe with it a little bit. But perhaps it's also a bit too sophisticated for you at that stage of your life. A bit too much of an acquired taste. But your teachers explain to you its magnificence. And so you begin trying to emulate that in your own work, using the same themes and techniques. And so you end up writing fiction and poetry based on what you were told to respect, what you were told is quality, instead of what you really love to read at that stage in your life. The books that first captured my interest, that planted the seed for my love of literature, were over-the-top tomes, like The Prince of Tides and The Great Santini by Pat Conroy, or The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. I had to pass through that stage, a very thrilling stage, to prepare myself for the greatness of Moby Dick, War and Peace, and Middlemarch. Perhaps you're in grad school, trying to write short stories like Lydia Davis, when really you would be more comfortable and competent writing fan fiction because that's the genre you're most fascinated by. Well, perhaps if you wrote the best fan fiction you possibly could, that would end up teaching you more.
You can be vitally interested, and I can talk here for endlessly about theories, about writing, about what's good and what's bad, and what you should do and what you should not do. And I guess it's very well to have all those notions in your mind, but when you sit down at that desk, you better get them all out of your mind. You fly by the seat of your pants when you're writing. You don't bring these theories with you. That is what I meant a while ago when I said there are some dangers attendant upon being highly educated for a writer. Not for a critic, he should be. But a writer doesn't want to develop his critical faculty to the point where it's riding herd on his work.
You don't want your critical faculties riding herd over your work. What a great and eloquently expressed piece of advice. And yes, writing by the seat of our pants is the only way that we are going to grow and learn. The only way that we are going to fail or succeed, importantly, and then we can course correct from that. You have to learn your craft so well that you're not conscious of it while you're working, as Foote says later in the same interview. Then, a day later, or a week later, or after however much time and space we need, we review our pages, we see where our instinct guided us true and where it led us off track, and then we discard the falsehoods and the fluff, and we work with and build on the true.
If you want to be a good writer, you got to have very early a notion of being true to what you have learned out of your personal experience, including your reading, but out of your personal experience. You got to be true to that. You should never be willing to write a scene that you know is false to these precepts in your own heart simply because it will work or somebody will buy it. Those are the traps that good writers don't fall into.
Exactly. You recognize the truth with your heart, with hunches, not with your critical faculties, with your bullshit detector, as Ernest Hemingway once said, by bringing the loupe, L-O-U-P-E, born of reading and life experience, in close, to distinguish the diamonds, although rough, from the bright and shiny knockoffs. And then you cut those diamonds into gems. Thanks for watching, good people. This is the 100th long video that I've done on Book Rants. Book Rants has been in operation now for 4 years. I just looked the other day. Over 115,000 views, which is not bad for a YouTube channel run by an obscure writer speaking about relatively obscure literature. So I'm going to keep going. Spread the word if you feel like it, good people. A quick reminder, to support the cause, you can always like, comment, or follow, or if my passion and insights about literature make you curious about my own attempts at it, there is always My Half Orange, a story of love and language in Seville, published by Tortoise Books in 2023, about the 10 most transformative years of my life when I moved from New York City to Seville, Spain in 2005 met a local woman, and started a family with her without hardly speaking Spanish. I plan to soon upload an audio version to Substack, Rants from a Foreign Land, John Julius Reel. Follow me there to receive all my updates by email. Thanks, good people.